Hey team, Wade Wyant here with Red Wagon Advisors. And over the past few months, I've been asking myself, what can I do to help, especially last month as things in this world have just continued to get more and more stressed around race equity and some of the challenges we still have here in the U.S. In that some of those challenges are being seen around police reform, education reform, and even judicial or the court reforms and the way we work with people. And I really can't do a lot there other than vote with my dollar and vote with my vote. And I was trying to figure out as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, a coach, someone who works with businesses every day and does a lot of advising. How could I help? How could my team help? We thought the best thing we could do is listen. And I wanted to put my words into action. And so we've gone out, we've reached out to some business leaders that I know, African American business leaders that I know in the community, and I've asked them to do a video series with me where I'll just be mostly listening, talking a little bit, but mostly listening and asking some key questions around what can businesses do better and how can businesses help. We cannot necessarily go in and reform the police, but we can give suggestions, we can give ideas, we can make recommendations, but we can also do other things. And I wanted to hear it directly from the community that's affected the most. And so I've gone out there and done the interviews. And so this is one of those interviews, and I really would ask you to tune into other ones and see what we were able to collect, some of these ideas. And more than anything, listen and take notes, because I think there's so much more as business leaders we can do. We just don't always know what to do. So I appreciate you watching this video, and I can't wait to get your response and hear what you're doing to try to help along some of the challenges we have here in the U.S. and just to make things better in general. But what's not working in business when it comes to race equity?
I think one of the things that has to take place, and this even goes, I think transcends race to some degree, is
Okay.
How much do you really understand about the people working for you?
Sure.
How much do you understand about them? How much do you understand about their lives? How much do you understand about their backgrounds?
Yeah.
How inclusive are you in the diversity within your own organization to understand where people come from and what that does to them when they come into work, right?
Sure.
And I think that there's a company in Grand Rapids, I don't know if you're familiar with them, they're called Become Unmistakable.
Oh yeah, it's great organization.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they have this UMAP software, which is really unique in the way that what that does is it allows you to kind of understand each individual on an individual level, because what that does is each person, we all have these things that we're all a collection of the things that brought us to this place, right?
Sure.
And so within that, we're compelled to navigate the worlds and the spaces that we're in that way. And in order to get the best out of us or the best out of your employees, you have to fully understand the backgrounds of the people in there. And I think that what happens a lot of times with some organizations is there's initiatives around like the American holidays. And sometimes what doesn't take place, if you don't really understand the makeup of the minorities within your organization, they're not really included in those things.
Yeah.
And so there are additional things that they may celebrate or they may acknowledge that there isn't really representation internally, or there aren't groups internally created to represent people's diverse backgrounds. And I think that what enterprise can do is ensure that getting the information or the data you have about your employees to understand maybe where they've come from, who they are on a very personal level. That's the reason I mentioned Become Unmistakable, because their UMAP software, really their software kind of addresses that on an enterprise scale.
Yep.
And I came into contact with them through the documentary film that I'm working on. That's why I bring them up.
That's great.
It's really, really unique what they're doing, and what they're the CEO of the parent organization of them wrote this book about leading from the heart. And so they basically kind of transcend their leadership strategy to make sure that one of their goals was to make sure everyone in the enterprise, everyone customer they had a smile on their face.
Okay.
And that was like the goal. And so if you set these kinds of goals like that, then you can understand, well, what does it take for us to get there? Well, not only do we need to have every employee within our organization feel good about themselves and the space that they're in, they need to feel empowered to belong to something. And how do you do that? It's all about connecting here. And so a lot of times we have these strategies, we have these policies that we enforce, But if we ask ourselves what the right thing to do is versus what the policy says, then we can kind of get to people more at a human level. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's happened a lot from a diversity standpoint, is a lot of people come from backgrounds and they come to work, they show up and they work, but a lot of times they don't feel like they belong to the thing they're working for, because there are many things and factors in their lives that even may be in the news or come up based on where someone lives.
Yep.
And the people that they work with may not be in those areas. So they may not even be aware of what's taking place. And then there's no recognition, there's no questioning. And so they feel very exterior to the environment. And in that case, in that span, you're not going to get the best out of that employee.
Yeah, so it's like when you don't know the joke, right? It's that you don't understand the punchline of a joke. You feel kind of like an outsider. But this is even worse. You don't understand. People don't understand you, and you don't necessarily understand what's going on. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, like I said, I want to listen, but I also want to emphasize places where I'm like, yeah, that why are we not doing this? Two interesting things you brought to mind when you're talking about understanding the people. And thanks for the plug of a West Michigan business. I don't know Become Unmistakable well, but I've definitely heard of them, and I'm familiar with their presence here. But I don't know the technology, so I'll check that out. And thank you for that. But you reminded me of when I visited New York and did some business there. And in New York, they haven't done a great job, but they have incorporated some Jewish holidays into New York City because of the emphasis of the Jewish community there. And I think there's a great example on a very small level of what you're talking about, right? Is where a community, whether they liked it or not, and I think they liked it, I hope they did, but they had to incorporate that in order to know and recognize that community. And it makes me also then think about Patrick Lencioni and all the things he's written about teams. And everybody says they want good teams. I hear companies say all the time, we want great engagement. You can't be engaged with your employees if you don't know them.